So y'all listen, I did a short and told y'all I was watching The Curious Case of Natalia Grace and how it was not on my radar, but season 2, Natalia Speaks, came out, honey, and I had to watch it. If you're new here, my name is Ashley and this is My Sweet Perspective, where I give my take on all things TV and movie related. And y'all listen, I thought I knew I was in for something, but I didn't know I was in for everything that I got. So I binge watched, after finding out season 2 had been released last week, I binge watched the first season of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, and then proceeded to watch the second season immediately after. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, let me give you a breakdown. So The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, season 1, is from the perspective of the Barnetts, right? They were a family who adopted this young Ukrainian girl who they believed to be a normal child with dwarfism and some other disabilities, right? They took her to raise her with their 3 boys, right? Down the road, they began to question whether or not Natalia is who she has been presented to be, or if she is in fact a grown woman. So the entire first season is from their perspective and giving us all of these events and encounters and things that have happened with Natalia Grace and kind of painting a picture, which I do want to say to the producers, the creators, the directors, I do feel like that was irresponsible. Had I watched the first season and then waited any length of time, my mind would have been made up, right, about who Natalia Grace was. So, you know, they find out there's different things about her. There's certain parts of her anatomy that they feel is overdeveloped potentially. They get there and they say that there's issues with her interacting with their boys. And finally they decide, you know what, we need to take her to some doctors, some specialists, and let's get her re-aged. Let's get her re-aged. I know she's supposed to be 8, but let's get her re-aged to about 22 years old, okay? Once they re-age her, they actually move her out of the house into her own apartment. I guess they come by once a week to drop off groceries. They pay the electricity bill, but eventually that kind of wanes, you know, off. You know, so they've kind of created this entire narrative, and we're believing the entire first season that, oh my goodness, this was a woman, you know, masquerading as a child, you know, and doing all of these crazy things that they purported her to be doing. We meet Michael Barnett, who was the adoptive father, honey, because Christine Barnett, the adoptive mother, couldn't be bothered to film on this series. She wanted no parts of it, okay? And so we're getting all of this from the perspective of Michael. And so while he begins to talk about Natalia, he does eventually get into the issue with Christine and the abuse that was really dispensed out to Natalia over the course of the time that they had her in the home. We later find out that, you know, Michael is going to be held accountable. And towards the end of the first season, he actually goes on trial for, I believe it's child neglect and endangerment. Well, not child, because they couldn't actually say the word child because of the whole re-aging situation. A couple things. One, my takeaway from the first season was that I don't care if this person had been older or not. The treatment that she received at the hands of the Barnetts was completely out of control, inappropriate. You wouldn't do that to your worst enemy. There are methods and channels and things to do when you're in hard situations that you can get help with, other than going through this whole elaborate ruse mirroring this movie, The Orphan, just to try to justify whatever it is you're trying to do, okay? So as season 1 closes, Michael beats the charges, not really because the jury thought he was innocent, but more or less they couldn't because their hands were tied in terms of Natalia having been re-aged. Okay, we go into season 2 now, and season 2 is Natalia actually giving us her perspective, okay, of everything that happened. And we come to find out that Natalia was in fact a child throughout this entire thing, and that she was actually forced to live and move and be on her own at 9 years of age, which is so heartbreaking. And not only did they move her, you know, to an apartment. They actually moved her to the hood for the second apartment. And so the second season is all about us getting her perspective. We get to meet her new family, the Mans. I believe Bishop Antoine and Cynthia Mann are her adopted family that she had been with since 2013. And we kind of get a conversation, a sit down between Michael Barnett and Natalia, where she kind of calls him to the carpet and asks questions. Of course, he wants to avoid. But again, we had to wait till season 2 to find out that she was in fact a child. And so I don't know, overall, again, Michael, the father, completely unhinged. You can tell by the gleam in his eye, the storytelling, the acting everything out. Like, he hasn't met a camera, a mirror that he does not like. Again, this was all for show. The theatrics, the drama of it all, it was really, really sad. We find out that he and Christine are no longer together. She basically did to him what she had done to Natalia. She told him, everybody, that he wanted to take her and her sons out. And so he's now been estranged from his 2 other sons for years. The oldest son, Jacob, who was a genius. I mean, he was doing TED Talks at 12, now lives with Michael. And it's just a terrible situation. They're still trying to cover up for Christine. And I mean, you guys would literally have to watch it to understand the level of abuse and just craziness that was done. And so, I mean, we're watching it. And so my overall thoughts, having seen both parts, is that no one was really innocent. Natalia was innocent initially in that she was absolutely a child. However, I believe personally, based on her traumatic experiences, even before reaching the Barnett's home, because she had been in a couple of other places after the Ukrainian orphanage, before even the Barnetts had experienced trauma, and I believe that manifested in her behaviors, potentially in the home. I think that the Barnetts wanted to use her, especially Christine, as a poster child, as they state in the documentary, for you know, speaking out against, you know, those who abuse those with disabilities. And Christine was the biggest abuser. And so when Natalia didn't fit that narrative, that picture, Christine thought of a creative way to get rid of her. I think that she and Michael were in on it together. He was definitely complicit. I know he says that he was the victim, and that Christine, you know, was abusive to him and all of these things. But at the end of the day, you were a grown man, Michael, and you could have at any moment called the authorities. Natalia, I think after enduring all of the trauma, the lack of being able to really connect with a family, I believe the behaviors are demonstrated to this day. I do. I think without intensive therapy, in addition to other things, all of the exposure that she's had, all of the trauma, doesn't have any choice but to express itself in certain behaviors and certain ways of thinking, right? I think it was so telling at the very end of the second season, the Mans, who had just gone through with this adult adoption, and they were so excited for her to be a part of the family officially, even though she'd been with them since 2013. The producers get a call 6 months after this adoption where he's like, you know, she's tweaking, she's stabbed us in the back, we don't want anything to do with her, we're cutting ties with her. And then we get this clip, Natalia's story will continue, and we see her dressed in all black like the Omen, okay? And it's just like, you know, they said there was other stuff before, and I think they were trying to put on a good front. Do I think that their motives are purely altruistic? No. I think that they did take care of her, and I think that they probably did their best to create a warm, loving environment. But I do think that there was some motivation in terms of maybe some financial recompense that they were looking for, especially with the whole talks of Natalia bringing civil action against the Barnetts, y'all. But yeah, it was super disturbing, and it just honestly made me think how many cases like this have really happened with these foreign adoptions, especially where the babies really have no rights. Like, and I'm also curious about cases of re-aging, how often that happens, because they had several doctors, dentists, everything that told them that she was 8, 9 years old, the correct age, and they still went on with it. Christine even went so far as to try to give her to men, which was just so beyond the pale and sick. But you guys, let me know in the comments below if you watched it. Let me know all of your thoughts, honey. I know that was kind of a ramble, but I just wanted to kind of talk about it and see what you guys thought. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.